Yo, welcome to Spectator Sporting. I'm Zach Roach, along with my partner, Mr. Adewale. We doing a big show for y'all today. We are going back in the time machine. We are talking about the 1980s, the top 5 boxes of the 1980s. Adi's gonna present that, and we're gonna see if Adi's wrong. And to see if Adi's wrong, we had to bring Byron in to see if he agrees with Adi, and we brought T.I.M.E in to see if he agreed. And we're gonna check it out. We're gonna test Adi's 80s. Let's see what he comes up with. So, Adi, talk to me about the top 5 boxers in the 1980s.
Yes, number 5, I get the Jinx. Michael Spinks at number 5. He became the first light heavyweight to defeat a reigning heavyweight champion of the world when he beat the undefeated Larry Holmes. He was 35-0. And Spinks beat him in the rematch. 2 years earlier, Michael Spinks became the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world against Dwight Braxton, who later changed his name to Dwight Muhammad Qawi. Number 5, Michael Spinks.
People sleep on Spinks because the last time they saw him was with the fight against Tyson. But if you look in that early of the 80s, Michael Spinks was the man.
Spinks was the man. and that would be my number 5 as well. So I'm very salty.
I like that. I like it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you mentioned that fight against Tyson. That was the last fight of his career. He was 31 years old.
Yeah.
He never fought again after that.
Yep.
And so, number 4, I get Julio Cesar Chavez.
You was gonna put him in there. You did.
I did. Julio Cesar Chavez. He started his career in 1980. He went a perfect 68-0 in the 1980s. The first time he finished a fight without winning, it was a draw. And it was against one of the greatest boxers of all time, Sweet Pea Whitaker. You got a draw in 1993.
That might be the 90s. He might be in the tank. He might be angry. That's a show. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I like to throw a flag on play.
That could be.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
My man Julio Cesar Chavez, he didn't lose until 1994 against Frankie Randall. Before that fight, he was 89-0-1. Okay, so number 4, Julio Cesar Chavez. Number 3, I got the youngest boxing champ of all time, Mike Tyson. Okay, Mike Tyson in 1987. He was only 21 years old. He was preparing for a fight against Tony T.N.T. Tucker. Now, Michael Spinks was stripped of his IBF title for refusing to fight Tony Tucker. Very underrated boxer, 6'5", undefeated. And Mike Tyson, he missed several days of training camp preparing for this fight against Tony Tucker. And he was so stressed out, because the model died less than 2 years before this fight. And Tyson was so stressed out that he was losing hair. And if you look at this fight, this Tucker versus Tyson fight, you'll see the big patch on the top of Mike Tyson's head.
Wow.
It was the hair loss.
Wow.
Okay. And Tony Tucker, in the first round, he landed a vicious left hook on Mike Tyson, which rocked Mike Tyson. But Tyson bounced back. He outboxed Tony Tucker for 12 rounds. No knockdown. No knockout, no knockdown, but he won by unanimous decision. The very next year, that's when that Michael Spinks fight happened. He knocked him out in 91 seconds. And in 1990, that's when one of the biggest sports upsets in history happened, when Buster Douglas defeated Mike Tyson, but that was 1990. In the 80s, Mike Tyson was 37-0, 33 knockouts.
Tyson was the man in that. This man had Mike Tyson Punch Out.
Yeah.
He was with Robin Givens. I mean, the man was fighting lions.
So, number 2, I got rest in peace, marvelous Marvin Hagler. Okay. Marvin Hagler, he defeated Roberto Duran. He defeated Roy Jones Jr.'s father. He knocked him out in the 3rd round. Yeah, and he also knocked out Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Okay, he knocked him out in the 3rd round in one of the greatest boxing matches of all time. 8 minutes of fury. Okay, so Hagler beat up everybody. Marvin Hagler was the undisputed middleweight champion of the world from 1980 to 1987. Okay, and Sugar Ray finally stopped ducking Marvin Hagler. and came out of retirement to fight him. And he stole the first 4 rounds of the fights because he was moving and bouncing bouncing around the ring like a jackrabbit. Only stopped.
Same thing they was blaming Mayweather for, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I ain't gonna lie. Mayweather did not move like Sugar Ray. Mayweather was like just hard to hit, but Sugar Ray was just, that man had so much energy.
Yeah, he did bounce around the ring.
Yeah, it's hard to get him. It's hard to catch him.
Right.
And so, but Sugar Ray could not keep that up for 12 rounds. And Marvin Hagler in the second half of the fight, he called Sugar Ray on the rope several times, blasting him. Okay, and he did a really good job in the second half of the fight. And Marvin Hagler was really pissed off with a split decision loss against Marvin Hagler, and especially with the Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray, and he was really pissed off with the judge, Jose Jojo Garra, who only gave Marvin Hagler 2 rounds in that 12-round fight. That I scored 114. 114. I had it a draw.
Yeah.
But Marvin Hagler, he said this isn't fair. He never fought again. He was 32 years old. He was so pissed off he would not fight again. Number 1 is obvious, is Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, Sugar Ray Leonard, he actually retired twice in the 1980s. Okay? He retired in 1982 because of an eye injury.
Yeah.
He retired in 1984 because he was stalling out Marvin Hagler, but he didn't say that. But he was circumventing Marvin Hagler.
So everybody been ducking fighters for the longest. It seems like this ain't just nothing new.
It's not.
This been going on since the beginning of boxing. Is that fair to say?
But they eventually fought the guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of these guys, we don't know, like, for instance, like, we don't know Canelo's ever going to fight with Diaz or Andre. These guys eventually fought him. So, Sugar Ray did come out of retirement and fought Marvin Hagler.
After 3 years.
It was almost 3 years when he retired, and he came out and fought him. And he beat him by the slimmest of margins. You had the Jojo Garra judge who was an idiot, but then one judge had it 115, 113 for Marvin Hagler. Another judge had it 113, 115 for Sugar Ray Leonard. Very, very close fight. He won. I got to put him over Marvin Hagler. Sugar Ray did lose to Roberto Duran, but came back with a win.
No mas.
He beat the Hitman Hearns in 1981 TKO in the 14th round. So, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Sugar Ray Leonard was a part of a lot of classic fights from that era. Not only with Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns.
The 4 Kings?
Yeah, they fought a lot. So Byron is itching to get this audience. So what do you disagree with? What got you in the moment right now?
I want to take a commercial break to get a dictionary to get a word to describe the absolute travesty that we just heard a few minutes ago from my good friend Adi. You put Sugar Ray Leonard over Marvin Hagler in the 80s?
He beat him.
How dare you? Sugar lost to Roberto Duran. And Roberto Duran lost to everybody. This was an age defined behind 4 future Hall of Fame fighters. This man didn't even mention Thomas the Hitman Hearns, who had 9 knockouts in championship fights.
They dominated the 80s.
Dare he? How dare he put Sugar over Marvin Hagler?
He beat him.
Marvin Hagler won that fight 115, 113. I actually just watched that fight today with my dad. And he was literally still getting, because he was a very big Marvin Hagler fan. Like this time period is special to me because this was my introduction to fighting. My father is a big boxing fan and he loves Marvin Hagler. I was young and he was saying this is the best fighter. So yes, this is bias. This is the standage. This is the stand that we fight in the comments every day. No, you cannot put Sugar over Marvin Hagler because Sugar lost to Roberto Duran. And Roberto Duran lost to everybody in the 80s. And this is a guy who won 103 fights, which cements him. I mean, this was the gladiator days of boxing. This was the most fun film watching segment that I think I've ever had. Like, I love 80s fights.
Yeah, when
like
they were fighting in the 80s, it was...
These fights were like nonstop.
Especially the Four Kings. Like back then, that division was so like. Look at that. You talking about like they was all right there.
All there.
Well,
Like right there.
let me defend myself.
Okay.
Sugar Ray lost to the Roberto Duran in 1980.
He did.
In the 70s, Roberto Duran was the fighter of the decade.
You're right.
And he only lost one fight in the 70s. He was like 60-something and one. In 1980, he was still close to his prime, okay? And then Roberto Duran, he beat him in 1980, and then that's when Sugar Ray gave him
5 months later.
Yeah,
5 months later.
And then he beat him, and then Roberto Duran. In the 80s, that's why he's not in the top 5. I can't put him in the top because he lost 7 fights in the top 5 in his 80s, and he went 14-7 in the 80s. He only lost 1 fight in the 70s. So the longer he got more longer in the tooth in the 80s, he lost to Tommy Hitman Hearns, he lost to Marvin Hagler, he lost to everybody. So
he further out of his prime now.
Right. When he fought him in 1980, when Roberto Duran beat him, he was closer to his prime.
Yeah.
And I mean, we got to look at the output.
So
as well.
you got Hagler #1 in the 80s.
I got Hagler #1, but the thing is, we also got to look at Sugar's career was kind of shortened due to injury, but the thing with Sugar beat top tier, he did. But that Hagler fight to me, because Hagler beat everybody. Hagler beat everybody, and we're gonna talk about it a little later. Hagler was part of probably one of the greatest rounds in boxing history.
Him and her.
In history. And if I know a lot of you guys are sitting here and y'all
700 power
y'all are kind of immersed in the Floyd Mayweathers. You will understand why the sweet science
It was just
wasn't. The sweet science wasn't prevalent. The master of the CompuBox wasn't prevalent. It was when you had to beat the man standing in front of you, and Hagler was part of the greatest round in boxing.
Yeah, I couldn't believe
boxing against an opponent that is a Hall of Fame talent with,
and he ain't scared at all.
Literally God-given power, and you had him literally going up against an immovable object to solidify himself as the champion of the 80s. And Adi is a very intelligent man, and he has a right to an opinion, but he's wrong.
So wrong. What about the rest of his list? So he had Sugar Ray #1. You disagree with that? You have Marvin #1, right? So you have Sugar #2 then, probably, right? What about Julio Chavez? You brought up some good points. You just schooled me on some.
That's my guy.
Yeah,
that's my guy. Chavez is my guy.
The reason why I did not put Julio Chavez in the conversation, because Julio Chavez fought in a division that wasn't prevalent at the time. Yeah. People weren't talking about Julio Chavez, because he existed in a time where it's kind of like how the 147-pound division was from 2000 to now, where, the champions of this decade dwelled in the middleweight, super middleweight. That's where they were, heavyweight.
Right.
People did not have it
was heavy middle, like the welterweight and lightweight division. It wasn't glamour at all.
There was no glamour to it. And therefore the competition wasn't. Now, in my top 5, Julio Chavez is the guy who's at #6 who didn't make it, because you have to have Mike Tyson there. But for me, my standage, I gotta have Thomas the Hitman Hearns in my top 5. I have to have him there. Because this man was the first kind of the tall welterweight. He kind of moved up where he was taller than everybody.
He was almost 6 foot. He's 5'11".
Exactly.
He was 5'11".
Lightning jab that put you with a right hand that you didn't see coming.
And bad intentions with the short hooks, the short uppercuts.
He fought big. He fought small. Like Tommy the Hitman Hearns has to be in my 80s top 5. And that's just me. And that's because, yes, it's a standage point of view. That's because my thoughts of boxing then, because I was a young child, was what my dad was watching. And my dad's watching Marvin Hagler. and he's watching Marvin Hagler. He has to go through Sugar Ray. He has to go through Thomas the Hitman.
It's a
he
real
got to go through Roberto
and
Duran.
these are champions. You talk about number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
exactly,
and they all could be
they're
champions.
fighting each other. And these guys aren't fighting. This isn't the boxing that we're kind of being force fed. Now these guys are fighting 6, 7 times a year. I'm telling you, you have to look at that division and say, you know what? Yes, what Julio Chavez did is absolutely amazing. Yeah. But you fought in a division that we really wasn't talking about, you know. And it's not a shot to him. He's a Hall of Famer, and he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. But I'm going with the conversations of the day, and nobody.
You might have curved. You might have made me change my mind just a little bit.
So before T.I.M.E. goes, so you would have Hagler number 1, Sugar Ray number 2. You agree with him with Tyson at 3?
Yes.
And then you would have Hearns number 4.
I would have Hearns number 4.
And Spinks number 5.
And my 5 would not include Spinks. It would include Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes dominated the heavyweight division in the beginning of the 80s. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of people don't like that pick, but it's just you can't take it away from what he did.
Not only a Hall of Famer, like he was in the 80s.
He destroyed
like
the fascination. He destroyed the GOAT.
That's true.
And truth be told, if you're into the whole multiverse theory and all of this, Larry Holmes beating up Muhammad Ali struck a fire in a young fighter named Mike Tyson, who saw that, who shed tears, and then turned into the monster that he became. And actually, his torch was passed when he destroyed who? Larry Holmes.
Yeah, he wanted to do that.
Who he told Muhammad Ali before the fight, I'm gonna get him for you. So I'm putting Larry Holmes there because although he's a bit of a villain, he dominated the first half of the 80s.
Yeah, he wanted to do that to him.
And the heavyweight division was a conversation of the day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, T.I.M.E.
That's wild.
You heard Adi's top 5. You heard Byron's breakdown when he disagreed with. You heard what he disagreed with. You agree with Adi, or what would you change on Adi's list?
Okay, so let me preface my comments by saying, like, when I became in love with the sport of boxing, unfortunately, it wasn't the 80s, it was the 90s. And not taking anything away from the 80s and saying I don't respect it, I haven't, you know what I'm saying, done my due diligence with every other era. But what I'm saying is, like, the 80s kind of to me was like the introduction. I didn't understand what it was until the 90s. And that's why I'm kind of like that from the 90s on. I'm kind of so. My 80s weren't really like in against yours, but mine were kind of like who the personal like dudes that I liked. That I knew like when I was like 88, 89, you know what I'm saying? When I was like coming up out of that, getting into the 90s, and I remember watching like who did I enjoy? So I'll go here. Oh, y'all will be real, man. Oh, this. So I'm gonna start at the bottom. The bottom is Chavez, number 5.
Okay.
I liked his style. I remember as a kid watching him walk forward and throw punches, and nobody could do nothing about it. Like I remember identifying with that, and I was just like, Viva Mexico, Viva Mexico, Viva. I didn't know. Now I know what it is. You know what I'm saying, of course. But so I'm talking about. I go back to the 80s, so I'm that old. So Chavez would be at the bottom. Now this is where it gets real crazy, because these are just my personal dudes that I understood. And I see that you have Spinks at 5. He's not on my list at all. So you had Chavez at 4. I got Chavez at 5. Duran's not on my list at all either. In my opinion, like I said, I preference my comments. I'm going based off what I saw. He wasn't interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I never took any. And then like going into the 90s when I started to learn, I looked at the other 3 kings before I looked at him.
Duran dominated the 70s.
Yeah.
So that's if we did the 70s,
and that's why
he might be number 1.
He would be in the top. He wouldn't be number 1.
So full disclosure, y'all just hit me to that, and I ain't want to say it, but now I'm about to expose myself. I didn't even know he dominated the 70s. That's nuts. But so yeah, Duran's not nowhere on my list. He just wasn't an exciting dude to me. Number 4 is Hearns.
Hitman Hearn.
Y'all agree on
He
that?
beat up Martin too.
Number 4, yeah, he beat Martin.
You know what? Real bad.
Super lump.
4th round.
Remember he had Gina for the kiss.
Yeah. 4th round knockout.
Come on, fam.
But that was the 90s, so we can't talk
But
about
yeah,
that.
I'm sorry.
My bad, y'all. To be continued.
90s.
But so yeah, Hearns would be 4. Number 3 would probably be Hagler. Yeah.
Oh, you got Tyson above Hagler.
Oh yeah. Of course. Damn. 3 would be Hagler. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, like
What
I was.
2 fighters are over Hagler?
I was in number 2 is Sugar Ray, and number 1 is Mike Tyson.
He got Tyson one. You know what? I can't be mad at that though.
I got Tyson number 1.
You can't be mad at it.
I can't
I
be
got
mad.
Tyson.
I could be mad at it. And I am going to be mad
Like I said,
at
I
it.
wasn't in defiance to Adi's list, y'all. But I was thinking since he was giving his perspective on his people, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick my top 5. I don't want to be defiant, so I'm gonna pick 5 fighters that got me rocking with it.
Okay.
So that's what I did.
I just think Tyson...
Sugar Ray was almost number 1.
Yeah, and
Okay, I thought we
That's
could
the
be clear with that
bias.
because I had the pen ready to throw.
that's the bias. No, I wasn't
It's
gonna
a
take
weapon.
Sugar out. Of course, in my eyes, it truly is between Hagler and Sugar. As
Right.
1 and 2, and that's in my eyes, and that's
But see, I wasn't a purist
That's because the dominance of both fighters. But my thing is, Marvelous Marvin Hagler dominated the decade.
Yeah.
He lost to Sugar Ray at the end of the decade, and it was
doubt.
the last fight of his career. And it was a career that was basically shaped by what you can only describe as war.
No doubt.
This man fought wars because of his size. He was undersized in a lot of fights. And it was basically him going out there out punching the guy standing in front of him. You know, all you guys, you sweet science stands would hate Marvin Hagler.
Yeah.
But Marvin Hagler is the reason why I appreciate fighters like Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
I love fighters like Manuel Marquez, even though he's a great counterpuncher. But I love guys that will go out there and fight and win fights decisively and not use, you know, the CompuBox system to get unanimous decisions. And Marvin Hagler was he was kind of a brawler.
Yeah.
But he won. So it was
So that's why I couldn't say he wasn't like boring to me. But it's like when I saw Tyson and I saw Sugar Ray, like
that was special. Yeah.
I saw Tyson first, so I'm more partial to that. Like I got latched on to Tyson, and just like for me, it wasn't just about him knocking people out. Like I was watching how he moved, how like he's literally anticipating the exact punch to duck under. Yeah. Like I don't think he gets credit for that.
He don't.
Like there was a greatness. Like if anybody know boxing, of course y'all know boxing. Y'all here, we love y'all. But if you know boxing, man, it will. Some of y'all pending. The love is pending.
Leave a comment and tell me how much you love it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's there was a different way that he was supposed to be trained to retain the title. Cuss always said, I'm going to teach you how to get the title, and I'm going to teach you how to retain the title. Right. So the style that he had, the way he attacked, was not the style that he was supposed to have once he became a champion.
Yeah, right.
And it's like a gift and a curse that he got champion so young. And Customato died when he was like.
We never got to see the finished product.
And like, because you look at Devin Haney, his father's there. Yeah. You need that person there.
Yeah.
And when he died and he started messing around with
just going all type of.
And he's not going to training camp, missing camp sessions. He could have dominated the 90s.
Well, if you want to talk about box office, Mike Tyson and Sugar Ray Leonard were box.
It was a spectacle.
You know what I'm saying? Like not to say Marvin Hagler wasn't. Tommy Hitman Hearns was because they all box off. But Sugar Ray Leonard and Mike Tyson was box office. Yeah. It was like I'm ordering. I don't care. We ordered on pay-per-view. We're gonna watch. They was must-see TV. So I can understand your with Tyson number 1. Yeah. Because Tyson had a hold on the boxing world.
And there was a whole movement at that time, like hip hop, like what hip hop was going through. And then that was the ultimate glamour division. The heavyweight champion was the king right now.
But it had been.
Back
from
then,
the 60s, 70s. The heavyweight division in America is always.
It was the king.
So I like all y'all top 5. All y'all top 5 is dope. I mean, you get some good arguments. I can see why my top 5 would be. I would have Sugar Ray number 1, and I would have Marvin Hagler number 2, Tyson 3, and I had Tommy the Hitman Hearns number 4, and I got Spinks 5. Because Spinks dominated the early heavyweights.
Okay.
He,
That's not bad. No, that's not bad. That's not bad.
So, but 80s was a great decade of fighters. It was a great decade of fighters. So, Adi, let's talk about when you went through your top 5 already: Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Tyson, Chavez, and Spinks.
Yes.
But what fighter? Was there some fighters out there you was like, man, they could have been top 5. They might have been top 5. Maybe if this didn't happen, maybe if that didn't happen, maybe if they went a different direction. Give me some honorable mentions from the 80s.
Well, you know what? The featherweight, Salvador Sanchez.
Oh, I like that. I was going there. I like that. I like that. Yeah.
Wow.
In 1982, in July, he defended his WBC featherweight belt for the 9th time over an undefeated fighter from Ghana, Azuma Nelson. Okay.
Yes, sir.
He defeated him in the 15th round. He had a 15th round TKO at the age of 23 years old.
Right.
3 weeks later, he died in his home country of Mexico due to a tragic car accident. Okay, it was one of the most tragic stories in boxing history. Only 23 years old, and he would have been a huge problem for Julio Cesar Chavez, who 2 years after his death became the super featherweight champion of the world.
So they would have had a clash.
They would have had a clash. That would have been, some great battles between them two guys. And Salvador Sanchez, he died with a 44-1-1 record. He was a perfect 11-0 in the 80s, and he was inducted in the 1991 International Boxing Hall of Fame.
That's probably one of the greatest what if stories. What if he didn't, because he was died so young, and he would have been able to fulfill his whole career. What
he was 23 when he died.
23.
The 23. Yeah.
Jeez, Louise.
Died as a featherweight champion of the world.
And who's your second person?
Well, my second person is the Hulk from Cincinnati, Aaron Pryor.
Hey man, come on, man. I was on the same thing.
Yeah.
Stolen.
Aaron Pryor.
Gotta have a backup.
Yeah. He was extremely aggressive from the opening bell. He forced his opponents to brawl. If you blinked while watching this fight, you missed something, okay? This guy, he never lost a fight as a junior welterweight. He was voted as the greatest junior welterweight of the century by the Associated Press, all right? But in 1985, at the age of 29, with a 36-0 record, 33 knockouts, he was stripped of his IBF title for inactivity and cocaine usage. He was addicted to cocaine, and so he was stripped. He was out of boxing for a couple of years. He tried to make a comeback in 1987 against Bobby Joe Young, but he was TKO'd by him in 1987. That was the only loss of his career, first loss of his career. He retired a couple of years later. By the time the early 90s came, he was homeless. He was addicted to crack cocaine. He got
crack.
Yes,
wow.
he got
We're jumping
arrested.
higher.
Okay.
Or lower.
Right. He lost everything. He lost his house. He lost his wife. He was down and out. He got arrested for drug possession in the early 90s. But when he got out of jail, he turned his life around.
Got back to it.
Preaching, became a minister, telling people, hey, don't let drugs destroy your life. And he was inducted into the 1996 Boxing Hall of Fame. Rest in peace. He died in 2016, but that guy was an amazing fighter. And rest in peace, the Hulk, Aaron Pryor.
T.I.M E, give me 2 fighters that maybe from the 80s that you kind of was like, man, they could have made the top 5 or they was.
So my number one dude is my affinity for the sport wasn't max level like it is now. Evander Holyfield.
Holyfield was in the 80s. He was making his name known. It's no doubt about it.
He was putting in a lot of work in the 80s, and I really didn't understand it until I started looking into it. You know what I'm saying? And again, I wasn't intentionally looking at fighters or had a list of fighters or, you know what I'm saying, have an understanding of, okay, I want to see this guy, then I'll make my decision. It was just, I was drawn to certain people. And I'm more looking at it closer to that age what was I looking at? So when I'm naming these names, that's all I'm doing. There's no external anything, you know what I'm saying? So Evander Holyfield, and I would have to say Roberto Duran. Like, just what I did see was like he was hurting people, like for real. He was just hurting people. You know what I'm saying? But because I didn't know the name was the Four Kings at the time, but because I knew of, you know, Sugar Ray and Hearns and Hagler, like he was kind of an afterthought to me at that time, 80s. Remember, I'm not even 10 years old, so.
He did beat Sugar Ray in 1980.
He did beat him. And when I came to understand that, I was real uncomfortable. You know, we bounced back and we maneuvered.
Yeah.
But
he got that first one though.
Yeah, man. So those were two dudes for me that definitely was in the mix.
What about you, Byron?
Well, both of my second fighters were taken, but there is one fighter that these guys did not mention. Wilfred Benitez.
I like that one.
Wilfred Benitez, and the reason why I knew
he was a pro's pro
of Wilfred Benitez was because, again, in the 1980s,
some of them
you had a division, the middleweight division.
They didn't want to take that
was
fight.
Very competitive. And Wilfred Benitez fought everybody. He fought Thomas the Hitman Hearns. He fought Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yep.
And he was probably one of the greatest Puerto Rican fighters to ever live.
He was competitive at all.
He was 53-8 with 31 knockouts. And he's just one of those fighters. If he existed in a time where the Four Kings did not reign, he probably would be one of the greatest welterweights we've ever be talking about. But he was a great fighter. I remember him because he was a common opponent, kind of a gatekeeper. You had to go through him.
Ultimate gatekeeper, though.
So he like Keith Thurman.
But no, he was way better than Keith Thurman.
He was better.
But
yeah,
I'm just asking.
And my second fighter, I'm gonna go back to the Aaron Pryor story. Is such an amazing story, and I think watching this show, if you haven't heard these names, I encourage you get on YouTube, watch these guys, their body of work, and it's just one of those tragic stories of what if. Aaron Pryor had so much God-given ability, but it seemed the closer that he got in the spotlight to the fame that he desired, his demons kind of took a hold to him. It's a very powerful story. There's a documentary that's available on that. Please watch it and basically immerse yourself in this decade. This is a decade of fighters. This is really the last era of the 15 rounders.
Yeah. And the real bad boys of boxing. And the real
we were kind of talking off show. And Thomas the Hitman Hearns fought 6 times.
You feel me?
In 1980.
What was he scored? You had to bring it up.
What was he thinking?
He had to bring it up.
He scored 6 knockouts.
What was he thinking?
In 1980, and Adi didn't have him in his top 5. And I just want you guys to focus on that.
Julio Cesar Chavez.
If you don't focus on anything else, get in those comments and let Adi know
the architect,
made a mistake.
Man, I ain't gonna even name some guys. I'll just name some other guys out there. I mean, I agree with everything y'all say because there was a lot of great boxers. You forgot. Maybe Dwight Muhammad Quad was another strong heavyweight at the time. You had Salvador Aaron Wilford, Donald Curry. I mean, it was a lot.
It was a lot of young fighters that in the 90s they gonna make your list a little bit harder. Like if you made a list for the 90s. If you made a list for the 90s, it might make your list a little harder because there's some of these guys on this list.
They was coming up in the 90s.
They were still there. It was relevant. You know what I'm saying? But
So the 80s was definitely a great thing. So Adi, before we get it, let's. Give me a fight that you was like that resonated with the 80s for you. What was a fight? What was a fight that you were just like?
I genuinely
this fight was like, man, this was everything.
Okay, the Motor City Cobra, Thomas the Hitman Hearns versus Sugar Ray Leonard.
Now, it's hard to say. That fight was that was amazing. That was just amazing.
Them two dudes fought twice, okay? I'm gonna briefly talk about the first fight. In 1981, they fought, Thomas the Hitman Hearns was 22, Sugar Ray was 25, and Sugar Ray won by dramatic 14th round TKO. Okay?
Yeah.
Thomas the Hitman Hearns, he needed that stoppage to win. Thomas the Hitman Hearns was winning that fight. All the judges had him way ahead on the scorecards, and Sugar Ray needed that knockout. He got it. Okay,
that's what Sugar Ray makes him like. Just for you knowing you need it, and he come up with
legendary
it
status.
and actually
Legendary
do it
status.
when you know you on the skinny. That's amazing.
That was great. Now
you up against it.
the second fight is where I'm gonna delve deep into. Finally, 8 years later, Thomas the Hitman Hearns
Rematch.
get the rematch. And in the third round of that fight, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, he knocked Sugar Ray down in the third round with a couple of big right hooks. In the 11th round, Thomas the Hitman Hearns landed a few more big right hooks and knocked Sugar Ray down again. And so headed into this 12th round, all the commentators, all the fans in the stands, everybody watching knew Sugar Ray needed another dramatic knockout victory to beat Thomas the Hitman Hearns again. And in the 12th round, Sugar Ray, he came out there like knowing he needed a knockout. He came out there, caught Thomas Hearns on the ropes a few times, blasting him with combinations of flurries of punches. That's just like MO, flurries of punches. And here's Thomas Hearns, he's clinching and wobbling. And here he comes with them flurries. And the ref finally breaks up a clinch, and the final bell rings, no knockdown, no knockout.
Yeah.
And so it was a draw. Sugar Ray did not lose that fight.
Yeah,
they robbed Thomas Hearns.
Two fights that Sugar Ray got that's very questioned in that decade.
Because he was he was America's sweetheart at that time as a boxer.
Definitely.
Like at that time, division didn't matter. It was Sugar was the guy.
Sugar was the guy.
He was the guy.
And they
He was the guy.
more than I was watching Thomas.
It's happened. It's happened.
The Hagler fight.
Since then,
The Thomas Hearns fight was a robbery. The crowd was saying bullshit when they announced the draw between him and Thomas Hearns for the second fight. And later on, Sugar Ray admitted that Thomas Hearns should have won that fight.
Yeah.
He knocked him down twice.
Yeah.
And he didn't get the knockout at the end, and they robbed him, and I just thought that was crazy.
And Adi had him at number 1.
I got him at number 1 too. I'm guilty too. Byron, give me a fight in the 80s that kind of signifies like I know that fight. That fight was amazing.
There will be some arguments off camera. I don't agree with nothing that these guys are talking about. They are literally sitting here telling you great fights. How dare they?
he's wild.
How dare they not mention probably the greatest round in boxing history?
I didn't say anything.
Hagler, Hearns. This is the greatest 3 minutes that you will ever watch. And if you haven't seen Hagler Hearns, stop what you're doing. You can stop the video right here, pause it.
You did.
Go to that video, watch that 3 minutes, come back here, and boo Adi in the comment section. That has to be in your top fights of the 80s. And the second is the redemption. It is Sugar Ray, but it's Sugar Ray versus Roberto Duran.
I knew you was going to say Duran.
Round TKO.
No mas.
No mas.
Made you quit.
You don't have no mas in your top
he made you
two?
quit.
Come on, man.
He made you quit.
Those two moments really define 80s fights
They made
for
a
me.
documentary about no
I'm
mas.
telling you.
Yeah, he had the boo-boo.
And
He had the boo-boo
to
problem.
go back to Hagler Hearns, Hearns had to walk through fire to basically try to get and impose his will on Tommy the Hitman Hearns. And this was 3 rounds of literal, like it looked like a movie, but it was real life. Like Hearns gets hurt, Hagler gets hurt.
It was
Hagler's bleeding, but he's still coming forward.
They both were taking so many punches consecutively.
There are times that you're watching that 3 minutes, like, is the clock pausing? Like, this can't be 3 minutes.
It was a lot going on.
That's how much damage was dealt in just 3 minutes.
I'm uncomfortable with why they never tried to move.
It was horrible, but it was violent, but it was the beauty of boxing. And that round, I'm telling you, it's one of my earliest boxing memories, and it's my favorite round in boxing history. So I know it's not a fight. Hagler did win in the 3rd round by TKO, by the way, but it was a great round, one of the greatest rounds in boxing history. So that's my two.
All right, T.I.M.E, you got to fight for us that you did.
I kind of echo both parts. You know what I'm saying? Both fights. I think they were significant fights. I think they were real fights. Like I said, I wasn't as locked in at that point as I was in a decade later in the 90s, 2000s going forward. But like even at that time, I can remember these fights, and I remember, my dad at the time stressing things to these fights, and we were leaving the area, and I remember this area, like I remember what was going on with the boxing, and he kind of had the gloves on at like 6, 7, 8. Like I remember that stuff, so I echo my sentiments on both sides, both fights. It's what made boxing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Look, the fights y'all named, this fight is not better than. There's no way.
No.
But it was the moment of the fight that really stands out. Mike Tyson and Michael Spinks. That moment in boxing, that's when Tyson pretty much became the biggest star and the biggest draw in sports.
Can I say something real quick? Like, the era back then, like Zach is sitting here telling y'all, like that Tyson Spinks. The era back then, mandatories were looked at totally different back then.
Yeah.
Your mandatory back then was, I have to do this before anything else happens.
Yeah.
I have to satisfy my mandatory. And then, okay, so who's the number 1, number 3 contender in these different, you know what I'm saying? Like, nowadays, it's not like that. There are different ways. That's why we think people ducking.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all. There are different ways to go around your mandatory. You know what I'm saying? If IBF says this, maybe you can fight them for this other sanctioning body, and avoid this mandatory for another year and a half, because now you just fulfilled the WBO or, saying.
What Roach just said.
Just saying.
That fight, that Spinks Tyson fight.
That
was a
nuts.
Big build up. Everybody thought that Spinks was the dude to challenge Tyson. And he what happened?
Yeah, first round knockout, okay?
90 seconds. 91 seconds.
And that solidified Tyson. At that moment, it was Mike Tyson. It was Mike Tyson punch out. It was everything was Tyson. It started the whole aura, the whole persona. This when he was probably at that moment. He was probably the biggest sports star, maybe.
He was. This was right before George and Bo Jackson was.
This was a hellified era of star players, of star power, and he might have been the star of stars. I mean, in the 80s, 87.
Yeah, maybe Gretzky.
You had Magic Johnson, Wayne Gretzky, Larry Bird. Like, you had these stars.
But Tyson was right there.
Tyson had a hell of a 5-year run.
Yeah,
95 to 90 before he fought lost the Bucks.
Look who was in the crowd in that. If you go back and look at it, who was at the
everybody.
In Spinks, the everybody's of everybody's was
your
at
boy
that
Trump
Tyson.
was in that
Spinks was the first man to beat
Michael Jordan showed up to that fight.
Mike now, 2, 3
That's why Larry Holmes was in my top. Larry Holmes was the man.
He was there too, though.
He was the man.
Yeah, so like I'm just saying that fight alone. Don't get me wrong. Now the Tommy Hitman Hearns and Hagler as a fight was a better fight. The Sugar Ray and the Marvin Haglers or the Tommy Hearns was a better fight. But the moment, the biggest moment was probably was Tyson and Spinks fight. That captivated the whole boxing world. That's when boxing was on top.
It was more of a decimation.
Yeah. You've been watching Spectator Sporting. I'm Zach Roselong and my partner, Mr. Adewale. Shout out to T.I.M E, shout out to Burn, our boxing gurus. Make sure you go on Spectator Sporting, subscribe to the page, comment. We do respond back. Man. We out. Peace.
Appreciate y'all.